Okay, here I am back with a new picture. There's this little girl and she's surrounded by bubbles, and I'm going to be trying to paint that. So I'm going to do it the same way I do all of my other paintings. I'm going to start off with an overall wash of the base colors that I think should be in this picture, and then as you remember, I'll work on smaller and smaller and smaller areas as we go. So whatever you've learned from the other videos, just watching over and over again, you see I'm basically doing the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to be using a creamy white and the color opera, which I really love, to start out this painting. Just with a nice wash. So as usual, I'm going to wet the paper first so that my paint can flow. You notice those circles and lines around the hair. What I've done is I've put that frisket on to protect those areas. All of those bubbles seem to have a white border outlining them. So that's going to be my way of making them look like bubbles, is to protect that white border and paint the insides of it, and then when I peel that away, I'm going to hope that I get the effect of bubbles. Never going to be a perfect photographic reproduction, because that's not what I'm trying to do. But I do want you to be able to look at it and get the sense of what I'm trying to portray. So now I think I've got that wet enough, and I'm just going to start to lay in some colors, nice and light and soft. Well, this color is so light that you really can't even see it. But I just want that to be a base color for her skin. Okay, that's a very soft flow of color, which I'll build upon later. I could have put other colors in there, but I just don't want to start off with any dark colors yet in this stage, because I've tried that before in the past and it just hasn't turned out right. So I'm one that I like to paint really from light to dark, build the dark colors on top of the light. So I don't really like starting with very dark colors. Of course, don't forget to clean up the water down that has pooled at the base of your picture. Okay, we're going to let that dry now. I'm going to do some work on this face now, and I'm going to do it just like I do everything else. I'm going to wet it, and then I'm going to put my next layer of colors that I want to blend on there. But I'm going to start to be more careful about where I place them now, because now I'm going to want my light areas to stay light, and I want the darker colors where they are supposed to be. Even though it's going to be running, I'm trying to be just a little more careful now about where I place things. Now let's see. Here we go. That's better. Still not really clean. Notice the big brush that I'm using. And once again, let me remind you that I'm just creating a piece of art. I'm not trying to perfectly copy this picture. So just remember this also, that painting wet and wet can be fun. Doesn't have to be scary. Because you know the paint is going to flow, so you're not worried about that. You're just controlling where it flows to a certain extent. And at this time, I don't mind it running, as long as it can only run where I wet the paper. And if you notice, I just blotted that up right there. I want that left light, so I just went and blotted it. So while it's still wet, you can go in and do all sorts of things that need to be done to control where you have stuff and where you don't want stuff, and so forth and so on. The only way you're going to know that you can control paint while painting on wet paper is for you to paint on wet paper. So just to piggyback what I was saying about those bubbles before, while I'm painting whatever it is I'm painting at that time, whether it's this arm or the background, I'm actually painting the bubbles then, without really worried about them. And then I will spend more time on them later, but just as long as the key is that they have the color of their background in them. I'm leaving that because there's a nice light highlight shining right there. If it's going to end up with some color in it, I will do that later, but right now I'm just liking it just the way it is. Soak this water up. Don't leave that, you'll be sorry. And I'll be back.